Hi, I'm Tim.
And I'm Al, tonight.
And I can't believe that you got me to do this again this year. Hi, I'm Ken.
Well, you know, I
And
tell
you
you,
are?
I'm John. How you
And
doing?
we're
all about tools.
All about tools.
But you know, I got to say, this reminds me that we did this last year. That means we've been doing this show for a year now.
That's scary.
That's really scary.
My life doing this.
Okay, anyway.
But
that's
anyway,
it for the Halloween antics.
Yeah, that's it. We want to welcome you folks to another week, or another version, another nightmare, I guess, the night before Halloween. How come I don't have a chair?
Because when I sit down, I'm as tall as you.
Actually, we want to welcome you to another show here tonight, and we're really excited because I think tonight's going to be a really fine show.
It's going to be a really fine show. And we have orange for Halloween.
Is this like a great pumpkin?
This is like a great, it's a big, great pumpkin.
So anyway, tonight we are actually going to be talking a fair amount about fine tools, which we're really excited about. But one thing I want to...
Fine brand tools, not just fine tools.
Well, but they're
fine.
fine.
They're fine and they're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Just real quickly, I do want to mention that there's a TSI Wood Show up in Grand Rapids, Michigan next week.
That's right.
And we will be there. We're actually going to have the fine Multimaster with us, but we're going to have some tools, and we're hoping that you guys that are watching the show here in the next week, if you're up in the Grand Rapids area, make sure you come by the convention center. I'll be there. John, they're not giving him license to leave the state of Florida yet.
But if you watch the archives in 2 weeks, we won't be there the following week, so you got to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and I'm already confused. So hopefully I'll see you at the TSI show in Grand Rapids. But again, tonight we're going to have a fine show. We have got all kinds of cool tools to look at, although we're going to focus primarily on two. But the overlap is from woodworking to shipbuilding to automotive to solid surface to...
Getting way beyond our
scope.
Our scope.
Beyond what we can handle.
But that's okay.
But that's what makes it so much fun.
That's right.
But anyway,
Why are you looking up?
And tonight we have a special Halloween celebration antic that we're going to do.
That's right.
And hopefully John will get hurt again in this episode.
That's right.
So we'll look forward to that. That's going to be in the beginning of the second segment.
Yes, it is.
So don't miss that.
Okay.
But anyway, well, shall we bring our guest out here?
Yes, we should.
Still here?
That's right.
He didn't leave.
I didn't have to bring him in from the airport either.
Okay, we have here from Fine, Vince Brolovich. Never quite sure how to say that.
Vince Gerlovich.
There you go.
Gerlovich.
Thanks for having me.
Gerlovich?
Gerlovich.
Okay. But last time we had somebody from Fine here. It was one of your field reps, Steve.
Steve
We're actually
Eckert,
with
yes.
a distributor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he
did an okay job.
He couldn't be here tonight because you didn't feel that he should be here.
We just won't discuss that anymore.
Okay. So anyway, but we're really fortunate to have Vince here. And besides cleaning the bathrooms at Fine, you do what else?
I sell. I'm the vice president of sales.
He's vice president of sales, so he cleans both the men's and women's rooms.
And why couldn't we get the president of sales down here?
President of sales?
He was in Germany, so he
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
make it,
Well,
yes.
okay, great. Well, we're glad to have you on.
I'm honored to be here.
Very good.
So,
Thanks.
well,
I think.
you have
That may change. That may change.
Oh, boy.
Honored is a very
in the middle,
strong
right?
word.
But we want to talk about really in the U.S. anyway. We really want to talk about what is the real bread and butter for Fine. But I found out today something I didn't know. Fine's real strength has actually always been metalworking.
Correct.
Right.
And in Europe, Fine is a German-based company just outside of Stuttgart, Germany, is their headquarters. They've been in business for over 140 years now, and the majority of that time they've been extremely strong and a market leader in metalworking products. It's really only been the last 25 or 30 years that they've established a presence in the woodworking market, but more so the renovation construction markets in Germany.
Okay, but that end of the business is what really is strong here in the U.S.
Yes,
or North America.
The construction remodeling market, the finishing market is very strong in the U.S., and we're working to establish our metalworking presence. So
now,
a little backwards.
I do know when I had a shop, one of the shops I've had. At one point,
You had several failed businesses.
You heard about that. I'm concerned. Actually, not failed. They're still going.
Oh, okay.
Without me.
Better now or before?
We won't go into that. But what I wanted to point out was really, certainly at one point in time, Fine almost owned the dust-free sanding portion of the industries.
That's correct. That's correct.
So with that, we really probably should invest the time in really understanding the tools that you have. Once again, we're going to, primarily on this show, we're going to talk about the sander, the dust-free sander, and the vac.
Yep.
And we really want to create a scenario where some people really understand the tools. Because there are a lot of tools out there to buy, a lot of different types of vacs, everything from the cheap, big box, $29.95 vac to some vacs that are
Thousands of dollars,
$900.
Yep.
And it may not be necessary for you to spend that much, but you certainly don't want to spend that little, because by spending that little, you're obviously getting poor quality equipment.
Right.
So right here we have not the Great Pumpkin. That would be the Turbo 2. This is just the.
This is just the pumpkin.
pumpkin.
This
Yes.
is just the pumpkin.
Yes.
So it's really an interesting tool, and as you can see, all Fine vacs come with what's that, XM radio?
XM radio. Yeah. Don't believe that, folks. It's not XM radio. We don't want the call.
But it looks like it. It looks like it.
But they said,
Yeah, they said I'd get
Thank
XM
you
for
so
a year.
much.
Well, I'm trying to work with you. But this is a Turbo 1 vac.
Yep.
And this is just a standard out-of-the-box model.
Standard out-of-the-box
And
model.
just to cover a few things, I mean, obviously it comes with a carry handle.
Correct.
Able to carry the load of the vac without any trouble. Now, I notice you have got one phenomenal cord here.
Yes,
how,
we
how
have.
long is this?
It's 16.5 feet long, and it's 12-gauge cable.
Okay, so it's not going to pull out. If I can see the plug is molded in.
It is molded in. It's very flexible. It's very durable.
How is this in a cold weather environment? Let's say I was working outside and it was 20 degrees outside.
Now, you're purchasing a Fine tool. It's going to hold up very well in that environment.
Okay, so the cold is not going to make the
No,
cord
it's not.
exceedingly stiff or anything.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's an important thing to know, though. And typically, even though we have it hanging like this because it's come out of the box,
Yeah. It can fit around the motor housing here and store very nicely, so it's out of your way when you need to transport it to another job.
Okay, so that's a great feature. And then now I noticed that this vac here has a furniture caster.
5
wheel.
of them, yes.
Okay. Now we talked earlier. The Turbo 2 has a
Metal caster with rubber wheels on it, and the Turbo 3 has the same caster. It's a more heavy-duty caster because this is a 6.5-gallon tank. The Turbo 2 is a 9.5-gallon. The Turbo 3 is a 14-gallon tank.
wow,
So
that's pretty large.
yeah, it doesn't need that support here.
Now, but if I were, let's say that I were going to be on a heavier floor. Now, one thing I noticed, because these type of wheels do tend to damage, they're easily replaced.
Correct.
But could I buy the heavy rubber wheels and put them on here?
If you so chose, yes.
Okay, and so it would be an aftermarket cost, but that would certainly be a heavier duty roller, and it would certainly give me a little bit better travel over rough surfaces.
It would.
Are you
yeah.
going to ride this thing around, or what are you going to do?
Well, I want to see what you're going to do a little later. Okay, so I mean, but that's really cool. And, we really don't have to have him here. Okay, and right here on the
He gets
front.
hung
now-
up on the weirdest things. You know?
I do, but I love stuff. This right here. Now I noticed that one of the things that really interested me
Yeah.
is on the hose here. It actually locks on.
That's correct.
Did you know it did that, John?
Yes, I did, because when we used to have these in our shops, we'd just pull them around by the hoses.
But now I've had other vacs where, and there are some high-end vacs out there that when you pull on the hose, it just you end up pulling it out,
Right.
and with solid surface dust, the dust falls out of the end of the hose. It gets all over the place. And
Once
it's
it
just a
gets
hassle.
into the air, it's everywhere.
All right. So, but this it positively locks on.
It positively locks on. To remove it, you just press the button and slide it out.
That
And
is
it
really slick.
Yeah.
I
mean,
really.
again, it's a minor thing, but it goes to the attention to detail that is a fine product.
Okay. Well, and as we're sure the name indicates, it's a fine product. And okay, so that's really an interesting thing. Now, right here, there's two switches on either side,
Yes.
and they do.
Well, it controls the starting and the stopping of the vacuum. You have two settings on the switches. You have on the right-hand switch, you have an M and an A. If you want to use this just
Ma?
as manual and automatic.
Oh, okay.
If you press it in the M setting, or engage the M setting, and turn the other switch on, if I had this vacuum plugged in, it would turn on. So you could use it as a standalone vacuum. If I press the main switch off and engage the A and turn it on, You'll also notice a receptacle. I can plug a tool in here, and the vacuum will turn on and off when I engage the tool, when I start and stop the tool, so you don't have to run back to the vacuum and start it or turn it on.
Wasn't Fine one of the originators of the auto
We
start
were one
vac?
of the originators of the auto start vac a very, very long
That's what I
time ago.
thought.
The other thing it does that's interesting is when you shut your tool off, you'll notice that the vacuum will stay running, I do believe it's 12 seconds. And what that does is it gives you time to collect all the dust out of your hose. So if you take your hose off and you drag it across the room, you're not going to have dust trailing after it. It makes sure every ounce of dust is contained inside this tank.
Okay. Now, the switches are covered by rubber.
Rubber seals to keep the dust out.
Okay.
Okay.
And that also protects you from when you're in a wet environment?
If you're in a wet environment, it is also a wet dry vac, so you can pick up water if the need should ever arise with this vacuum.
Okay, now I also noticed, very interestingly, that there are 4 screws on the outside of the plug.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that because this is manufactured for Europe, it's designed to run on 220, but also that has to make replacing this receptacle, if it's ever damaged,
Very easy, that's correct.
Okay. And now also you told me before the show that the plug is...
It is.
Double
It is.
There you go. What?
I told you that. We went over this.
Throwing a softball and he just misses it altogether. You play for the Colorado Rockies?
Pittsburgh Pirates, they're even worse.
Oh, he wrapped that bat around himself. Okay. No, but it's
It's a double insulated vacuum.
and if fine, next time for the next show, if you could send us somebody else. Okay.
Maybe someone who's a little more prepared, a
That's
little on the
right.
ball. you know.
Even though we went through this whole thing before the show. So that's a double insulated plug. So even if you're in a wet environment,
You're not going to get shocked, yes.
You're not going to get electrocuted. Okay, so that is phenomenal. Now let's go ahead and I guess plunge into. Now another thing before we do that, actually something you told me about the way this housing is done. Right here on the back, there was this real interesting divider.
Yeah, there's a divider. We have the motor on this, and you'll be able to see parts of it, but not super clearly when we take this off. But there are 2 fans on this motor. We call this whole concept of turbo cooling technology. You have a massive turbo fan on the bottom of the motor that's completely sealed from the rest of the motor. And what that big turbo fan is doing is creating your suction through the hose, drawing your dust across the filter, and then on one side of this divider, it's exhausting all of that air. On the other side of the divider, you have the cooling fan for the motor, which is on the top of the motor. It doesn't need to be so big. Its only function is to keep the motor cool and to protect it from burning up. So on this side, away from all the dust, with a barrier from all the dust, you have half or a quarter of this side drawing air in and across the motor, and then the other quarter of that side exhausting it. So basically what it means is if you completely block that hose, you can run this vacuum virtually forever and you're never going to burn this motor up.
Okay,
Vince was telling me yesterday that some of the guys are purchasing these to draw a vacuum on their CNC tables. So that's a good indicator that you can actually draw a solid vacuum with it and not burn the motor out, which you can't do on a lot of others.
Mm-hmm. An interesting thing, you have a 12 amp, 13 amp capacity with this unit. So any tool that draws up to 12 or 13 amps you can run off of this unit.
Okay, we have a question along that line from Al Stein in Lawrence, Kansas. Al, does the automatic start work with all power tools?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so even
His
if
name's
you...
Vince.
Well, but Al wanted to know.
Okay.
Yes, Al, it does.
And not the Al that you would flip it.
Okay.
So if you have a porta cable sander,
Any sander you can hook up to this vacuum. A lot of people buy
as long as
shop
it
vacs.
has the capability of dust collection.
That's correct. It would serve no purpose really now. But if you have a dust-free tool of any sort and it doesn't draw more than 12 amps, you can run it on here.
Well, it'd have to be a real monster to go more than 12 amps.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, good question. Thank you, Al. Another question from Mike in Blacksburg, Virginia. Can I run more than one tool at a time using the vac for dust collection?
You can do that. Gets a little tricky with the receptacle, but you'd put a splitter on here, and as long as they didn't draw both tools combined over 12 amps, plug them both in here. We have a Y connector that would go into the vacuum. You would need to purchase a separate hose, but then you would have 2 hoses, each 16.5 feet long, hooked up to your tools, and whenever you turned one on, the other would work, or vice versa. Yeah, so it would handle that.
Okay, so really, the only concern as far as it running multiple tools, and multiple is really the limit is 2.
Yes.
Is going to be the total amperage draw on the receptacle itself.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, well that's very simple. All right, so we pretty much covered
He
the
knows
outside.
an awful lot about this.
It's very good.
I guess I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, when we get into this, I'm going to flip this bad boy over.
Okay.
Okay, now on the motor itself, how powerful is the motor?
The motor draws 90 inches of static water lift at 116 CFM. It is extremely, extremely powerful. And what creates that power, when I mentioned earlier the turbofan, this entire thing is a good 4.5 inches long and maybe, 8-9 inches in diameter, right? That is the entire turbofan. It's stacks of turbofans that are running to create the suction in the hose and in the filter.
Okay, and now let's say, if some water were to get up in there or something, it's not going to damage
Never
the
damage
Okay.
it, yeah.
All right, so that's not a problem. And I noticed the float here is a cylinder.
Yep, and it's an automatic shutoff. Well, it's not an automatic shutoff, but if you're using this in a wet situation, as it fills up, it gets to this point and you lose suction at the hose. So at that point, you would know that the tank is full, shut it off, take the tank out and dump it.
And even if somebody weren't paying attention, let's say they had walked away for a few minutes, because you have that secondary cooling fan, you're not going to burn
up the motor.
And that's a great feature. I can see where that could really be beneficial.
Yep.
Now, I've noticed this real interesting
Cone.
frame there.
You like that, okay?
You're a real sick person, John. I really don't want to do this show anymore. But without touching that, explain that to me.
Well, when you buy this standard
You're never going to use this, are you?
This will be buried somewhere. When you buy the standard vacuum, it comes with a 5-micron paper filter element. We have the capability of
That's
upgrading.
the one that's in here now?
That's the one that's in here now,
Okay.
which we'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
We have the capability of upgrading the filtration to either 1-micron filtration or to a HEPA filter, which gives you 0.3 micron filtration. If you took a 1-micron particle and put 100 of them side by side, it would equal the diameter of a human hair.
Wow.
So we're talking about microscopic filtration. And then the HEPA filtration is really for carcinogenic material or very, very hazardous dust.
In a normal shop environment, a wood shop, this would probably be adequate.
That would probably be adequate.
So where the HEPA filter would come in would maybe be in hospital work.
Hospital work.
Now, could you sand drywall?
You can sand drywall with it. We would suggest when you get into drywall, and even solid surface, to use the 1-micron filter because you get a paper bag in here and it really does a better job containing the dust, especially if you're out on a job site and your bag fills up. To change this, it gets a little messy. In the shop, that would be fine, but out on the job site, it's a cleaner changeover if you should need to do that.
Now, this is a standard filter that comes with it, which
Yes.
is almost like a heavy felt cloth.
It's a cloth bladder, we call it, yeah.
And it's got a frame that holds its shape, which is extraordinary. And this is washable, so its lifespan is indefinite.
Indefinite. You have to, when you wash it, you don't want to take a high-pressure washer and hose it off. You want to gently clean it out from the inside, from this side out. But if you do that, it can last a very, very long time.
And also, I noticed here, it's got at the intake port on the inside, there's actually a splitter wall. So it actually blows the dust out and divides it and channels it around the wall of the drum itself.
So it doesn't all load up in one spot. It's evenly dispersed.
And it doesn't clog up the filter in one location. You get full use of the filter, full utility of it.
And it protects the filter.
And this holds how many gallons?
6.5.
6.5. And it comes standard with a upholstery brush.
Upholstery brush and a crevice nozzle.
And a crevice nozzle. Now you do have, I took note in the book, you do have a kind of a starter
a cleanup kit that you can buy with it.
And you also have a good metal commercial kit.
A good metal commercial kit, yes.
Okay. Well, there's certainly a lot to talk
very quickly, I know we got to go to break, but is there a lot of difference between the larger vacs? Are the motors about the same, or are they all Do they get progressively bigger
The
and more
6 and the
powerful?
9, the motors are exactly the same in terms of their performance.
Okay,
when you
so
get
it's
up to
just the volume.
Yeah, when you get up to the 14-gallon unit, you get about a 10% boost in power.
And how much vacuum do these really draw? I mean, do they really hold a lot?
If you had a tube that you had in a bowl of, or in a tub of water, and you could measure it, it would draw that water 96 inches in the
Pretty
air.
powerful.
It is.
All right,
Now,
maybe
we'll
after a break we'll put that
We'll
to...
talk about this in just a couple of minutes
okay.
and what this is all about. And we're going to go to break because we're in trouble.
Right, we're already late. This is called Strike Hold, and this was it cleans, lubricates, and protects, as it says. But it's an amazing product. I have never seen anything like this. You know, I don't even think it's up on our website, but it will be tomorrow. It does everything. It's just amazing. It does everything. It cleans, it lubricates. We had the threads on our planer were rusted, and we had to open it up to 6 inches, which you normally wouldn't do. And we sprayed it down with this stuff, and in 10 minutes it had eaten through all the rust, and it worked just perfectly.
I know, just by way of, I do quite a bit of shooting, and I read that you could use this for guns.
Right.
And I sprayed it down the bore of one of my pistols, and I was amazed. It immediately cleaned the bore out.
Yeah. Unlike any other product, it actually goes through the water. Other products like PB Blaster and things like that, if you fill them in a cup of water, they lay on top of the surface and they do nothing. If you actually put this in, this goes through the water and will eat a styrofoam cup like that.
How long does this last, though? I'm curious.
It lasts for 5 months on a non-moving part. So it'll waterproof for 5 months, like an electrical connection or things like that. But if it's something that's moving all the time, you want to just keep spraying it on a regular basis to keep it protected. Now, what we're going to do is very simply, we're going to spray.
Oh, you're a chicken, is what you. We did this earlier.
Well, all you do is you spray the surface good, okay, like that, and then you spray anything that's going to be.
Let me get furniture out of the way. That won't take the finish off of her chair, will it?
Spray the light bulb too. All right. Now you screw the light bulb together, and I'm just going to show you a simple test of this. You're going to see a really neat demonstration of this when the manufacturer comes in. So we have this. All right. Now this is regular water here, just like nothing special about it. And we're actually going to take that and drop it in the water.
Are we going to go offset?
Okay. Look at that. Look at that. Can you believe that?
Can you stick your finger in that water?
No.
Go ahead.
But isn't that amazing? All right, so, and then you could just take it apart. Now look at this. Watch this. A little bit of water on there. Here we go. Ready? Ready?
Thought we were going to have an Alcatraz moment.
Look at that. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, that is absolutely amazing. So imagine like, like let's say your car, if you drive an old clunker or something, and every time it rains, it runs bad. Just spray down the spark plug wires, distributor cap, all of that stuff with this, and it'll protect it for 5 months.
Well, now, big
it's
thing,
amazing
and you
stuff.
and I had talked about this. For all of you guys that are field carpenters,
Right.
framers, stitches guys, all that, if you take and you think of your tools that rust, the chucks on your drill.
Yep. Just spray down everything in your toolbox with this stuff.
Router bit shafts, saw blades.
Yep.
Once again, all your tools, all the contact. That deteriorates from, especially humidity down here in Florida,
Absolutely.
all along the Gulf Coast. But anybody involved in the marine industry, carpenters, farmers.
If the lights go out, folks, you know what happens.
He couldn't leave well enough alone.
I just wonder, when we
Don't try this at home, by the way.
Right.
Not unless you have this.
when we when we do this on our show, when we actually get into doing this, I think maybe we'll see if we can put some goldfish in that bowl, and then show that there's no electrical discharge at all. Wouldn't that be cool?
I think it'd be cool if you put your foot in a bucket of water.
Amazing, just amazing.